All right. Welcome to the Rise Up podcast. I'm your host, Jonah Mitchell. And on this show, I do my best to simplify everything that goes into the weight loss process so you can rise up to your potential and ultimately make this a lot easier on yourself because there's a lot of information out there. There's a lot of misconceptions out there. There's a lot of things that we carry with us throughout our life that makes this a lot harder than it needs to be. And I want to help you start making those connections so that this doesn't actually, so you start realizing that your journey is supposed to make your life better, not harder. It's still going to be challenging. There's still going to be setbacks and hiccups along the road, or along the path, excuse me. But if we can learn to get out of our own way more often, then it gives us the space to really unlock results that will last. So if first time listener, thank you so much. I appreciate you being here. If you're a long time listener, current client, old client, thank you so much again for participating or partaking in my rants and my ravings. And I hope you continue to find these things helpful. And yeah, like today's title, going over the 3 steps that you should do when the scale isn't going in the right direction. I love my job. I love helping people make this process a lot easier than it has been, but there are still challenges that we face. There are still things that come up where progress, we expect to see more progress, and a lot of times it doesn't, or sometimes it doesn't come the way that we expect it. And essentially, I wanted to give you the 3 steps that when I'm facing this with a client, we've been really consistent and things just aren't going in the right direction that we thought they were going to. This is the 3 steps that I make sure I take myself and my clients through in order to make sure we're checking off all the boxes to see the results and identify any discrepancies. Because really, I want you to understand that if you're not seeing the results that you think you should, it's not like it doesn't automatically mean you're doing something wrong. A big part of what gets in our way is we don't understand or we're not aware of something that may be leading to us over consuming more calories than we think. And that's usually the big reason that we're not seeing the results, because we may just be eating more than we think we are. And that's okay, right? Like there's a lot of things that we need to understand when going through this stuff. But I really want to help you I really want to give you the pieces in this episode to start going through those thought processes. So without further ado, let's talk about the first thing you should do if the scale isn't going in the right direction and you've been working really hard. So step number 1, we need to breathe. We need to calm down and we need to look at the facts. So here's weight loss is not linear. Weight loss and fat loss are not the same thing. And we really just need to look and see if there's other things, if there's other forms of progress in other areas that we may not be aware of. When we are so hyper focused on the scale, it can be very misleading when things aren't going in the right direction, in the direction that we think we think it should go. There's a lot of reasons for this. If we've had a lifelong struggle with the relationship with the scale and we're hyper focused on it, it's not a very easy thing to just like not focus on it, but we need to give ourselves some time to think, to relax. The reaction that we're having is making it harder to see. So here's how your brain thinks when you get really stressed out about this number on the scale and you just get so emotionally worked up about it. When we get stressed out, our brain goes into tunnel vision. Any stress response, any emotional stress response immediately gives your brain to focus on the one thing, the thing that's causing us stress. It has a hard time getting out of that. Like, this thing is hurting me. This thing is putting me in danger. This thing makes me feel uncomfortable or upset. So when we're stressed and very emotional, we have a single mind, a single way of thinking that makes it really hard for us to talk to ourselves rationally. We immediately go to the emotional responses, reactions that could lead to more frustration, more difficulty. So the very first thing we need to do is breathe. Just give yourself 5 seconds. It's okay to have the emotion. It's okay to be upset. It's okay to be afraid of the number. But if we don't give ourselves the time to just allow ourselves to express it and then move on, right? We don't have to carry that emotion with us through the rest of the day. And usually it stays with us if we don't let ourselves feel it and then intentionally try to relax. I know that's not always easy to hear, but if you're not thinking clearly, you can't find out the other areas in your journey that you may be seeing progress in, because change is not linear, right? I don't care what you've heard, lose 1 to 2 pounds a week, blah blah blah. Like I've done a episode about how weight loss isn't linear, but I need to remind you that if it's not going down the way that you think it should, that's not a bad thing. So now fat loss and weight loss are not the same thing. You could be losing body fat without losing any weight. You can be a smaller person without the scale going down. So when after you relax and earn and give yourself the ability to talk to yourself rationally instead of emotionally, then you can realize, okay, fat loss and weight loss aren't the same thing. Just because the scale isn't down doesn't mean I'm doing something wrong, right? Fat loss, I can lose body fat without losing weight. If I'm feeling better, if my energy is in a much better place, if my digestion is in a much better place, if I'm sleeping better, if I'm more focused, more clear, I'm still making progress, right? So essentially we want to give ourselves every possible reason to identify the other areas of progress. Because if we're starting to feel better internally, our body, and we haven't felt good for a long time, our body's going to adapt to that more. And then eventually it will lead to the physical results, right? But when we feel better first, our body likes that a lot more. We like that a lot more. And we can do the number one thing we need to see results is to maintain consistency, right? So once we just let ourselves have the emotion and learn to relax, breathe through it, say, okay, this we don't want to avoid it, because if we suppress the emotion, it just gets worse. And then our brain keeps thinking about the thing that's causing it to have tunnel vision. But if we feel it, we understand it, we say, okay, it's okay for me to be upset. I want to see the physical results. I'm working really hard. Okay. Acknowledge it, accept it. Great. Is there anything else that's getting any better? Anything else? My energy, my focus, my clarity. Cool. Once that's identified, great. Now we can move on to the next piece, right? The next piece is where the mechanical stuff come into play. But if we don't start here first, and you keep changing diets, changing your numbers, changing the thing that you think you have to do, you're going to cause more problems. This is us addressing the root of the problem. Your fear, your anxiety, your frustration, your stress around the scale. If we don't address that first, if we always just immediately abandon ship and go to the next thing because we're emotional, we're going to keep getting the same result. We're going to keep getting frustrated with the lack of results. And eventually it's going to lead us to get frustrated, put our goals on the back burner again, wait until we get motivated for another vacation or summer event, whatever pops up. And then we'll try again and do the same thing without actually addressing the real cause. Okay. Feel the emotion, be upset about it, but now intentionally focus on, okay, I'm going to focus on the positive. Is there anything going in the right direction? Are my clothes fitting a little bit looser? Is my digestion a little bit better? Am I less bloated, right? Energy, sleep, all these things are areas to pay attention to. And if your clothes are fitting better, if you're fitting in clothes that you weren't able to before, it doesn't have to show on the scale, because that means fat loss is happening, right? So again, relax, breathe, feel the emotion of frustration, and then walk yourself back to understand, okay, is there anything I'm seeing? Because if there's anything that's getting better, anything at all, something is working. Something is working. And just because you think you're supposed to see a result a certain way, well, something I like to remind my clients, how much success have you had with that in the past? And think about it. If you did something that worked, but when you stopped doing it, you regained weight, was that really a success? Maybe not. So if you're projecting what you think should happen based off of how something that didn't last, your judgment is skewed. So you need to be open that, okay, I may not understand how this actually works, and that's okay. There's a big misconception that, and I talked about this either last week or the week before, about the things that we can control. Our body weight, we think we have control over it, but we don't. We have an influence over it with our food choices, with our exercise, with our stress management, all these things. We have an influence over it. We don't have a direct control. Yes, eat less than you burn, but we cannot magically just make, cool, I want to lose weight, and we start seeing it. We have to make the adjustments that will influence that change over time. So if you're feeling better, you're influencing that scale to go in the right direction. You just have to be open to understanding that, or realizing that you may not truly understand this, and that's okay. If you're feeling better in any way, shape, or form, I'm really driving this home right now because I need you to understand this. If we do not get here first, nothing moving forward will work. And if it does, quote unquote, work, it won't last. But address the feeling, the emotion first before we move on to the next thing. All right. So number 2, after we've relaxed, we've talked to ourselves rationally, we've identified any possible areas that we still may be seeing progress. Even if we didn't, even if we're not, well, great. This means we can move on to number 2 and understand why, right? Why are we not seeing the results, or why are we seeing the results that are getting better in other areas, but the one that we want to see on the scale? So this comes out. Number 2 is essentially being honest with yourself. Okay. This is a big part of what I was kind of talking about before, how we get in our own way. The number 1 thing needed to see results is consistency. Period. Bottom line. You can be consistent with shitty reasons and you can still see results. A lot of people, I want to lose weight to feel better about myself. And they lose weight and they don't feel better about themselves. They feel the exact same. And then they think they have to keep losing weight to feel better, to feel better. No. We don't need that right now. We need to understand, okay, now that I've calmed down, I've understood I've acknowledged my emotion and I've acknowledged any other progress. Have I been truly honest? Have I been as accurate as I possibly can? Right. And this is a question for yourself first. Right. And then when I'm working with someone like this, after we address this, then we look at, okay, are they unintentionally being dishonest? And that, again, that's not like we're not intentionally trying to sabotage ourselves. There's just things that we may not be aware of before. But usually, I have a client going through this right now. We haven't been able to see the scale go in the right direction that we wanted. And it's been very frustrating. And that I literally get so uncomfortable when my clients don't get results because I take it personally. I feel like it's my fault. And so I want to find out why. Find out what is getting in the way of us seeing results, because there's only one way to lose weight, and that's to be in a calorie deficit. Now, if you're not losing weight, you're not in a deficit, period. Because the law of thermodynamics for a human body, energy will be burned regardless of how much you eat. So if you're eating less calories than you burn, your body will use your body fat stores as energy. And that's where fat loss comes into play. Fat loss and weight loss comes into play, right? But if we are not eating in a deficit consistently, we are not going to lose weight. And then our goal is to be honest and identify why. It's instead of placing the blame of or blaming ourselves for us doing something wrong, it's like being inquisitive of, okay, am I truly being as accurate as I possibly can? Am I being as consistent as I'd like to be? Right. So that client that we were struggling, not seeing results after a good while. Well, now I'm having him send me photos and I'm double checking his logs every single day. And I've been able to identify discrepancies that he has unintentionally been adding calories into his diet that he wasn't aware of. It wasn't his fault. It's not like he's not working hard. He is working hard. And that's the frustrating thing. And so now I'm just sitting here inquisitively, not saying, oh my God, I have to keep bringing you lower. It's like, no, before I make any other calorie adjustment, I need to confirm the accuracy. I need to confirm, are you tracking and weighing everything in grams? This week, my client, I found out he was weighing his rice in milliliters and not grams. That's a very big discrepancy. Added up over 7 days out of the week, every time you have rice, even if it's not that much rice in general, it's still a part of that lack of awareness, like unintentionally being dishonest, that leads to us over or eating more calories than we actually think we are. So when we start identifying those things and correcting them, right? Well, maybe we didn't need to make a calorie adjustment. Maybe we just need to be more focused, be more accurate, and dial that in, identify those. And once we have those things, well, a lot of times we can start seeing those physical improvements without making drastic adjustments. We can start seeing progress go in the right direction when we just become more aware, right? Because if we have an emotional reaction and then we drastically overcompensate for it, we're creating bigger problems for ourselves in the long run. But if we slow down and we relax, we say, okay, this is okay. I'm frustrated. I want to see results. but we acknowledge any progress that we've made, and then we get real honest. Okay, you know what? Maybe this last week wasn't as accurate. I was eating out like 4 or 5 times, so those things are affecting my consistency, right? Am I weighing everything accurately, weighing everything the same, or am I kind of going all over the place? Am I aware of my liquid calories, that being oils and soda or juices or anything that has calories? It's very easy to overconsume. And that once we become inquisitive and see the possible gaps, then we gain the ability, we gain the power back to say, this is why I'm not seeing results, and this is the adjustment I want to make, instead of drastically overcompensating. I have to starve myself, I have to go back to cutting out carbs, I have to do this, I have to do that. It's like, no, stop. We don't have to do anything that makes your life harder. We need to slow down and identify where the gaps are, where the kinks in the armor are, so that once we pay attention to those and correct those, and if it, then a lot of times it fixes the problem. A lot of times we start seeing the results. And if it doesn't, then we earn the right to make another calorie adjustment based off of the information, based off of, okay, we are tracking this much, we feel this way, we're still not seeing the results. Well, now we've earned the right to make another adjustment to see the results moving forward. All right. So after that, after we've relaxed, we've gotten real honest with ourselves, and became inquisitive instead of emotional and reactive, then we move on to 3. Number 3 is the most important skill anybody can develop. All right. You just have to keep going. This is a very, very important skill. There's a big theme with my clients this week of how chaotic and disorganized and out of control our life can be. And it's very difficult to remind ourselves of why we're on this journey if, 1, we're not seeing results, and 2, our life is like reminding us of like how hard it is to stay consistent, why it's easier to put it on the back burner and just stay uncomfortable instead of working on doing what we can with what we have. Because it's kind of scary to think about, but like we have to understand it. We have to think about it. What's the alternative if you give up? Like, what's the alternative of you keep going, you keep trying? The alternative is you give up, you stop trying, and you change, because change is automatic. Change will happen regardless if we want it to or not. We can have an influence in that change, or we can let life dictate the change that we see when we put our goals on the back burner. There's going to be more change that you're probably not going to be happy with. You're probably going to gain more weight. You're probably going to get even more uncomfortable. You're probably going to feel even more miserable in the long run. And are you willing to live with that? Are you willing to say, it's too hard, so I'm just going to stay here? It's more comfortable for me to be uncomfortable in the state that I'm in, because it's too hard for me to keep trying. It's too emotional. It's not fair to you. It's not fair to the goals that you have. And it's not fair to the people around you. If the alternative of you if the alternative is you become even less of yourself, that doesn't sound like a good deal. Yes, this process is difficult, and there's millions of people who struggle with their health every single day. But the vast majority of people, if they would just keep digging, like the old meme or adage of, if you stop a foot from gold and you go home, like all you have to do is push over the hump. And as long as you keep showing up, well, you're also developing a very important skill, because life and the scale fluctuations and a lack of comfort and the situations that you can't control, they will keep coming. They will keep happening. You're going to keep having to convince yourself to show up regardless, even when you have the goals. There's no point where we just stop. That's, I think, another big misconception. Like, when you have the weight that you want, how you lost the weight, you're going to have to keep doing it to keep it off. So if you do it in a way that actually gives you the life that you want, the health that you want, the activity that you want, you better do it in a way that is aligned with that. Because if this is why keto, it doesn't work for a lot of people. They don't plan on living without carbs for the rest of their life. So that when they get off of keto and they reintroduce carbs, they go off the rails and they regain all the weight that they lost, because they didn't plan on staying keto forever. So if you build a foundation of, okay, it's emotional, it's frustrating, but you know what? I'm being honest, I'm paying attention, I'm identifying all the possible changes, and I'm gonna still keep trying regardless, because the alternative of me trying is me quitting. And if I quit or I give up on myself again, it's gonna be the more of the same. It's gonna be hard regardless. This is another thing I love helping people understand. It's hard to show up for yourself, but it's also hard to stay the same. Because if you're always, don't get me wrong, it's easier to stay the same, but it's hard to live that way, knowing that you're going to be uncomfortable all the time. Every social encounter, every beach encounter, or just anything out involving more of your body showing that you may not be comfortable with, that's hard. You always have to think of who's gonna judge you, who's judging the lack of success that you have, right? That's exhausting to always be thinking how other people are judging you. That's hard to do. Are you willing to do that more? You may be, again, it can be easier to do those things because you're used to it, but it's hard to live that way regardless. And it's going to be hard to show up for your goals, but you can regain the confidence in your skin. You can get to the ideal body that you want. You can feel the way that you want to feel. You can fit in your clothes eventually, as long as you keep trying. The second you stop trying, you guarantee that the discomfort that you have is going to stay here. It's going to stay here. The most important thing needed to see results is consistency in any way, shape, or form. And just because the scale isn't going in the right direction doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong. It doesn't, and you don't deserve to stop trying to get to your goals. That's just unfair. It's unfair to you. It's unfair to the people around you who want the best for you. It's really unfair for the best version of you. Because you've always let that person get pushed by the wayside because you're so emotionally caught up with the scale, and you don't give yourself the time to identify all the possible other areas of progress that you've been able to make. And you don't just keep trying regardless. It's not easy. It's easier said than done, but something is always better than nothing. If you're used to going to the gym when you have the time available, you're used to sweating your ass off, you're used to crushing yourself in the gym and working out an hour every week, and then your life changes up, and now you can't do that hour every other day, and now you feel like that nothing you do will be good enough. Like a 5-minute workout, even though that's the only thing that you can fit in your schedule, it's not very impactful. But if you let yourself give up, because it's not good enough for you to keep trying, well, again, change is going to happen. The change that you don't want. You're going to gain more body fat. You're going to feel more uncomfortable, as opposed to you doing what you can with what you have. You have an influence to limit weight gain and fat gain by doing something for at least 5 minutes. Because then eventually life craziness will pass, and then you'll be able to go back to that more ideal version of exercise that you want. But if you're doing nothing at all, your body's going to change regardless. When you do nothing, it's going to change. It's going to hear that, and you're not going to like how it changes. So I'm really, really digging at this because I need you to understand that the scale is not the end all be all. It's not fair to completely abandon everything just because the scale isn't going in the right direction. You're only going to make your life harder by not trying, by giving up. When you can slow down, relax, allow yourself to feel the frustration, say, okay, you know what? This frustration is telling me something. It's telling me, well, yeah, I'm uncomfortable, but you're passionate about being the best version of you. The scale number doesn't have to be the end all be all, right? Just because you have a number in your head doesn't mean it has to be there for you to look the way that you want. And this is another part of understanding what the scale means, right? The scale just tells us if we're in a surplus, maintenance, or deficit. You can look smaller without losing weight. You have to understand that, though, but before I end off, I alluded to this before. Fat loss and weight loss are not the same thing. You can lose body fat without losing any weight on the scale, especially when you prioritize protein and strength training. Your body can be smaller because body fat takes up more space than muscle mass does. So if you lose body fat, but you retain muscle and you don't lose any weight, it's not the whole muscle weighs more than fat. That's a myth. That's a myth that doesn't exist. Because if you have a pound of bricks or a pound of fat, there's what's heavier, right? Muscle is just more dense. So I'm giving you this essentially for that honesty and that relaxing time. Like, am I fitting more in my clothes? Am I fitting better in my clothes? It's more ammo to say, great, I may not be seeing the results on the scale, but my clothes are fitting better. So I know I'm going in the right direction. So I know I should still keep trying, even though the scale's not going in the right direction. I know I should still keep trying, even though I may be adding more calories in than I think I am, because the only way to lose weight is to be in a calorie deficit. And if I'm not losing weight, I'm not in a deficit. That doesn't mean starve yourself. That means identify why. But that just means keep going, keep trying, because the alternative of you not trying is you give up, you put yourself on the back burner, and your body continues to change in a way that you don't like it to. It's not fun. So we might as well keep trying regardless of what it looks like. Allow yourself to feel your emotions, learn to understand them, and then keep going anyway. Because eventually you will gain the skills. You'll gain every skill you need to lose the weight sustainably, to feel good in your body again, and to keep it off. That's what we're trying to do here. Lose weight and keep it off for good. So yeah, I know I kind of repeated myself a lot that last 5-10 minutes, but I really wanted to drive this one home because I know the scale is very important to many people, and it is the biggest thing that can set somebody back. And with that, I want you to have this so that when you're in those moments, ready to give up, ready to stop trying, you have a reminder to say, you know what? You know where to look, you know what to address, and you know that the most important thing to see results is consistency. So the only thing you're hurting when you keep trying regardless is yourself. The only thing you're hurting when you stop trying is yourself. And that's kind of a lie. Because if you're always a watered down version of you, if you're never living the life that you want with your health, then the people around you, they're hurting as well because they're not getting the best version of you. You're not taking care of them the way that you want to because you're always in your head. You're always feeling miserable. You may put on a smiley face. You may put people above yourself, and that may make you happy. But deep down, you're always going to be eating away at yourself. So I want that cycle to stop. Hence why rise up to your potential and get out of your own way through understanding and awareness. So I hope this found this helpful. If you did, I really appreciate if you shared this episode or the show with just one person. I say it every single week. I really appreciate everybody who shares the show. The growth I've seen week to week has been absolutely amazing. Everyone who listens, if I don't ever speak to you, I'm glad to make even a small impact in your journey, however that looks like. I hope you have a wonderful day wherever you're listening to this, and yeah, I will see you on the next one.